And we are here today to speak on a contract for technical assistance with the Corporation for Supportive Housing. The City of Missoula is leading a local collaborative effort to create new supportive housing units for some of our most vulnerable community members, including those experiencing chronic homelessness, whom are frequent utilizers of our public crisis systems, police, jail, our shelter systems, and our emergency medical systems. Starting in 2018 with funding from the Montana Healthcare Foundation, the city led local planning efforts to create and implement the frequent utilizer system engagement model. This work led the city to reinvigorate our local efforts to create targeted permanent housing solutions for those experiencing homelessness, also cycling through emergency rooms, shelters, and jail. This process led to the development of a project known as the Trinity, which was led by partners in our community, including Homeward, the Missoula Housing Authority, and Blue Line Development, and will include 30 dedicated units of permanent supportive housing to serve the fused population, in addition to a navigation center to connect folks who are chronically homeless and living on the streets with the services they need to move beyond homelessness. While all three phases of the fused implementation project are currently underway, with the Trinity being the final phase, the city is focusing on developing supportive services for that project, the Trinity project. The city and its partners have identified several key decisions that need to be made in order to meet the project timeline to support our developers in this, including finalizing the supportive services budget and the design for both the housing units and the planned navigation center. And you'll remember that in the prior budget season, council allocated funds to support this work. The City of Missoula is seeking technical assistance to develop the final supportive services budget for both the supportive service housing units and the navigation center. This will include identifying existing sources, gaps in supportive programming, and a plan for sustainable service funding over the life of the project. Additionally, the technical assistance provider will lead the procurement and partner selection efforts for the supportive service provider for the Trinity project. The Corporation for Supportive Housing, whom have been identified as the technical service provider, are a leader in supportive housing nationwide, focusing on person-centered growth, recovery, and success that contributes to the health and well-being of the entire community. They work to advance solutions that use housing as a platform for services to improve the lives of the most vulnerable community members, maximizing public resources and working to build healthy communities. They offer a comprehensive portfolio and boost the value and impact of their work in over 300 cities nationwide in 48 states. They have made home a reality for over 300,000 individuals and families who have regained hope and dignity. And perhaps most importantly, the Corporation for Supportive Housing is a trusted partner of the City of Missoula. They worked to assist us in the creation of our FUSE model and in the creation of our Missoula Coordinated Entry System. And with that, we're asking the committee to authorize the mayor to execute the contract agreement for services between the City of Missoula and the Corporation for Supportive Housing to provide technical assistance on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. And needed to note for the record, I believe Ms. Harp is not in this meeting in terms of attendance. Thanks, Erin, for a great presentation. And I was really curious to see how the allocation this summer from the budget would play out in terms of laying the base to really create a self-sustaining situation with the Trinity. So this is really interesting to see this. I've got several hands raised. Mr. Von Losberg.
Thanks. I'll go ahead and make the motion if that's okay with you. And if I could speak to it just briefly, I just wanted to underscore a couple of the things that that Erin mentioned that I really resonate and I think are critically important. And first of all, I think it is important to note this additional allocation that council made for this work during the budget season. But the main parts I wanted to underscore were the trusted partner aspect of this work. As Aaron described, I mean, we could have a whole presentation about fuse and coordinated entry. And I think these are really important because these are examples in our history of work that's been done and is influencing our response to these issues on a daily basis with our partners, and have been really successful efforts. So I think that's great. And I guess in short, I don't need to articulate how important the Trinity Project is. We've reviewed this multiple times in various committees and council meetings from different in different contexts and at different points in the project's history. But suffice to say, this is another critical element in that response, and really happy to support it.
Thank you. And that motion is in order. I'm going to keep going with questions. I have no attendees at this point, so I don't know if we'll have public comment, but for now we'll keep going with questions or comments. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I guess thanks, Mr. Von Lossberg, for making the motion so I can now comment on it. And I think that not to be fooled by Erin's calm demeanor when she presents, that this is a really big deal. The Trinity Project will have significant impacts in our community. This year in the budget cycle, we made significant investments to address some of the needs of the so many people in need in our community, from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to the Mobile Crisis Unit. But putting this piece in the budget seemed fairly insignificant at the time, but what this allows us to do is to bring this person in to coordinate with all the various entities to make sure that the Trinity Project and how it's built out and the services that are there meet the most good for the most people. One of the things that we heard a lot from community partners and advocates over the summer is, great, you're doing a mobile crisis unit, that's super needed, but then we don't have that second piece of it, of the actual place for if someone's in crisis to take them. I know there's a technical term, but my coffee hasn't kicked in yet for it this morning. And this Trinity Project and the facilities there are that handoff. Yes, we know that need is here and now, and we don't have magic wands to make this all come about overnight. We are making significant concrete steps, and this, to pull it all together to make sure it services the most in our community, those that most need, is so incredibly significant. So thank you to the community members for advocating for this. Thank you to the council members who voted for the budget that allowed this. And thank you, Erin, for all the hard work to bring this together. I know it doesn't meet everybody's needs and it won't solve all our problems, but it's a significant step. And to highlight what President Von Lossberg said, the Trinity Project is a huge lift for our community, and we are all very supportive. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Cheryl?
I think my fellow council people have kind of highlighted what I was going to say well, but I just wanted to tell Erin I'm excited to see this coming forward, and it's really as we kind of trudged through getting this budget done this summer, I think to start seeing some of our investments in our community that we made in our community come forward. I'm just I'm really happy about it. So thank you.
Ms. Becerra.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize how Fuse is an incredibly important component in successfully providing services to the unhoused members of our community. And I'm glad to support this motion.
Thank you. Ms. West?
I just want to add support for this. And I think that kind of isolating this and putting someone in charge of it really allows the existing partners also to do what they do best without having this as an unknown. And I think that this will allow the project to move forward in the best way possible. So thank you.
Thanks. So I'm calling for public comment, but we have no attendees in the waiting room at this point for public comment. So I will just add a few comments of my own, which thanks so much, Erin, for bringing this. And I think a lot of times in many venues, there are great ideas and great projects that are started, but they don't necessarily meet the goals that they're trying to reach because there's not enough of a holistic wraparound to make sure that all of the issues are spotted, all of the services are provided. And I think Erin has a great knack for seeing the big picture as well as a small picture, and how can we make sure that all of the services are, we don't just need to provide housing. There's a lot of issues. It's a very complicated issue. We need to provide a lot of other services so that this is successful. And to be able to take this seed money and find the right entity out there in America that can help us pull all of those different threads together to not only provide the different services, but to provide the funding for them so that this will stand on its own is just, it's great. It's the way things ought to be done. So I really appreciate that. We have no more comments and no public comment, so we will take a roll call vote on this item. Lisa.
All right. Stacy Anderson.
Yes.
Martha Becerra.
Yes.
John Contos.
Yes.
Jordan Hess.
Yes.
Gwen Jones.
Yes.
Jesse Ramos.
Yes.
Amber Sherrill.
Yes.
Sandra Vaseka.
Yes.
Brian von Lossberg.
Yes.
Heidi West.
Yes.
All right, so that gives us 10 yeses and 2 absents.
Thank you so much. That can go on the consent agenda, but I'll plan on making a few comments on it this coming Monday night because this is a good achievement. So thank you, Erin. Run off to your next meeting. You're on time. All good. Thanks
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to go back and kind of start the meeting a little bit now. We do not have anyone here to give public comment on items not on the agenda, but if anyone does want to comment during this meeting, you can go to, you can go to our agenda on the city website and there's a link there to join the meeting. For other public comment, you can also leave City Council a voicemail. And actually, Lisa, can you put up the information for public comment for the meeting? That slide, if you know how to do that.
You know, I apologize, Gwen. I'm not sure how to do that. Just the link to join. Is that what you're?
That's all right. We'll get that next week.
Okay, sorry. I'm the learning curve is a little steep, but I'm getting it.
That's all right. I'll talk to you after the meeting. But
Great.
if also people want to leave a voicemail for City Council, they can call 552-6012 and leave a voicemail. So there's lots of different ways. And they can also email us at our City Council email that you can find on the city website. So we always want to have public comment. We have minutes from December 2nd, 2020, and I did want to make a change to those minutes. The change basically was for the vote that we took with a vote on an amendment also to the 2021 City Council schedule. I had just asked our clerk to put that vote in a chronological order as it unfolded. And other than that change, was there any other changes to those minutes from anyone else on council? Seeing none, those will stand approved. Okay, we have 2 more items. The next item that we're going to hear is Chase Jones on the Energy Services Master Contract and Investment Grade Audit Phase 1. Chase, are you with us in the meeting?
I am. And can you hear?
There you are. Yes, we can. Excellent. Please
Great.
take it away.
Sure. Well, good morning. Excited to be here for the 2nd week in a row. For the record, my name is Chase Jones, and I have the privilege of serving as the city's Energy Conservation and Climate Action Coordinator. don't be worried. There aren't 3 of me on the meeting. I know when videos were off, you saw my name 3 times. Mercifully, I'm joined today with Tim Tolman and Reed Prison from McKinstry, which is an energy services company that the city selected almost a year ago through a competitive RFP solicitation to engage in an energy savings performance contract. And that's obviously what we're here to talk to you about today. Thank you for your time. We're super excited, again, after almost a year of developing this, to bring you a master contract with McKinstry to formally engage them as our energy services company, or ESCO. You'll hear there are some acronyms and jargon in this world as well. And as you may have seen in the referral documents, that master contract defines the relationship and services McKinstry will provide to the city over time. With the master contract, we're also bringing the first addendum that initiates the first step in the energy savings contract process. And that's called the investment grade audit, or another acronym, IGA. And that's for the first phase of city-owned buildings, facilities, and assets. We envision future phases of IGAs when appropriate and strategic, as well as taking the findings from this round of IGAs and parlaying them into building and energy retrofit and construction projects. Because of that sort of dynamic nature, we've structured the master contract in a way that allows for future addendums with McKinstry, and we anticipate doing that. This structure also allows us to build a solid and efficient relationship with McKinstry over time, and their team, and them with city staff and our building portfolio. So we think that structure makes a lot of sense. In today's presentation, we're going to cover a lot of ground in hopefully a short amount of time. We're going to give you an overview of the background that led to the city choosing the energy savings performance contracting tool. It's a little unique, and we think really smart. We're going to give a brief overview of the McKinstry company and team and how they do business. Again, we're building a relationship with them, not only for a one-off, but hopefully in the future. We're going to do a little energy savings performance contracting 101 so that you understand that concept and that tool. And then we'll talk about Missoula's scope of work for these phase 1 investment grade audits. We are going to hopefully go over one brief example of work McKinstry did with the city of Great Falls. That's on a parking structure, but we think that example will give you a flavor of what will hopefully happen here in Missoula with our own building portfolio. And then finally, we'll open it up for discussion. So if I may share my screen, and I should have done this already. Okay. Is that appearing?
Yes, great.
Great. So for a bit of background, this is the slide that I presented in the pre-submittal conference when our RFP was out for proposals. It was important for those potential bidders to understand the city of Missoula's goals with this project and moving forward with this tool. I think it's just as important for you and the public to understand those goals as well, to understand the power of what we can do with this arrangement in an energy savings performance contract as we move forward toward the impactful building and energy improvements and energy retrofits. So I thought I would share this. As a review of those goals and that background, the goals that we can achieve with this are will improve and improve the performance of our facilities in phases, as I mentioned. Also, we will be able to implement energy savings, efficiency, and conservation efforts across our building portfolio in phases as well. With that energy savings, we also save money. And on top of just saving money on energy savings, we also save operations and maintenance dollars and add capacity to our staff as well. Those are also very important things. We also build in occupant, employee, and visitor health, safety, service, and comfort. And we're always trying to do better in all of those realms for obvious reasons in our public service. And then finally, it'll help us get even more of a handle on our data and reporting coordination. And then last, but certainly not least, This is a slide that shows our municipal or city operations energy and climate action plan. We set the goal of carbon neutrality by 2025, and this will allow us to really integrate elements of that to achieve those goals, as well as integrate elements of our 0 by 50 zero waste goal and plan, and our 100% clean electricity goal and initiative into our city operations throughout that portfolio. So it's exciting to place these goals, and it was exciting to place these energy and climate goals along with those more traditional goals that I flashed up on the slide previously into that RFP process and into an energy savings performance contract. I think it attracted a lot of these energy services companies to bid on this. And we're excited that McKinstry, as you'll see, has a lot of expertise and is totally on board with helping the city do that. So as you can see from this slide and then discussion of this helping us achieve our energy and climate goals, this work serves multiple goals, and we like that. In addition, and in synopsis, we think that this is an important and smart step to take because we get to take a deep look at our buildings and facilities with the first step of the process, or that investment grade audit. We're able to do big chunks of work all at once that we're not often able to do in the sort of general fund and building maintenance cycle. And we can do that at a somewhat expedited timeline. And you know, 2025 is rapidly approaching. I probably feel that more than just about anyone. In addition, this tool gives us the option of doing all of this at an expedited timeline with very little to no cash outlay to do the work, because the energy performance savings performance contract tool, it requires contractual guaranteed savings as a finding of the investment grade audits. And those guaranteed savings, we know, often and will likely in our case, pay back the financing or cost of both the audits and the construction and retrofit work. And so I just wanted to make a quick note that we did calculate and list the projected costs of the investment grade audits in the addendum, but we fully expect to move forward with the next phase, which is the construction phase. And again, the beauty of this is we can roll both the audit costs and the costs of the construction and energy efficiency retrofits into that performance contracting phase, and those guaranteed savings pay back all of that. So it's a really elegant tool. And on top of that, our financial risk to do both the audits and the energy efficiency retrofits and construction, our risk is mitigated there because of that contractual savings guarantee. So simply put, if McKinstry is unable to provide the guaranteed savings, then they cut a city a check for the difference. So again, our risk is mitigated. For all those reasons, again, and more, we think there are lots of wins here, and we're grateful for your consideration this morning. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tim Tolman from McKinstry to talk about, to briefly talk about the company.
Thank you, Chase, and thank you very much for allowing us to be here. I'll be brief about the company. I don't think you need a long description of who we are, but I'll give you a short one. The company is 50 years old, began in Seattle, Washington as a plumbing company. As we grew and as Seattle grew, it became obvious to us that low bid mentality work doesn't always provide the best output for the project. With low bid, most of the time you get low quality. So we went into a process called design build bid, where we do the engineering and the construction both. As we grew and continued to do things and worked with our clients, they came back to us and said, we have energy problems. We're spending a lot of money. We don't know how to do things. You know our facilities. Can you help? So a little over 20 years ago, we formed an energy services company, or ESCO. And as Reed will tell you a little bit later on, but and as Chase spoke to, it's a way to pay for projects out of energy savings. So fast forward to what you care about, I think. We opened Montana November 1, 2008. I used to work for another company in Montana. And one morning I got up on the other side of the bed because of my interest in renewables and conservation and went to work for McKinstry. The marching orders I got from corporate were grow a business in Montana that provides value. The best way to do that's hire good people. And so that's what I've done. And so over the last 12 years now, we have opened 3 offices. We have Missoula, of course, Bozeman, and Billings, and we have 19 people who do our energy audits, our engineering, and manage our projects. 13 of those people are in Missoula, and those are the people who are going to be working on your project should you go forward. So quickly, how much work have we done? We've done about $75 million in energy conservation and renewable work in that time. It goes from everything from lighting projects to controls to HVAC to solar. We do all sorts of things. And as a municipality, you won't be the only one in Montana who uses us. We do work in Great Falls, Bozeman, Billings, and Butte. And we're also the selected ESCO right now for the University of Montana and the county, Missoula County. So we're doing a lot of work here in Missoula. And we honestly believe that a synergy between the city, the county, and the university make a great deal of sense in getting some larger renewable projects on board. We think that there are some things we can do to help. And so that's my 2-minute spiel on McKinstry, and I'll turn it over to Reed to things you probably care more about.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. And thank you, Council, for having us today. On this slide, I'd like to talk a little bit about kind of McKinstry's philosophy and how we approach your buildings and assets. This pie chart essentially shows what we would call a total cost of ownership for a building or an asset. And what I really want to point out and draw your attention to is half that pie is operations and energy, right? And so that's where we see this great opportunity to not only reduce your costs, but also conservation and emissions. So let's talk about the funding mechanism of how energy performance contracting works. This going left to right just basically is a timeline showing before EPC, during the financing period, and then after the project is paid off. And so if we look at those annual costs and we look at that top section of potential utility and operational savings, that's the target, right? That's the piece we want to investigate, identify, and develop a project around. And so that second section is that identified guaranteed savings. As Chase said, we will investigate it to the level where we're comfortable guaranteeing it, and then we'll measure and verify that for you and then make up any shortfall directly through financial compensation if we miss that guarantee. And so with that target and with those savings, we can then make up the payment for implementation of an actual construction project of these conservation projects. And so that's that third period. That savings is going towards that debt service. Now, once the debt service is paid off in the fourth column, those savings continue, right? Because you're still saving that energy, you're still saving those costs, but now you have no more debt liability. And so those savings can go directly into your budget or into other projects that you might want to direct those monies to. So ESPC benefits, really this is a structural slide comparing the two different forms of construction and project delivery and the benefits associated with those. So I'm going to actually start on the right with traditional construction that I'm sure you all are very familiar with. But this is where you would hire several entities to form a project team, right? And so you would hire an architect. They would either have an engineer on staff or hire an engineering firm. And then you would develop a project, put together documents, get to the point of where you're bidding, and then you would select your general contractor and then their subcontractors. And so you have multiple points of contact and multiple contractual entities in this setup. The difference here with ESPC is that you would have a single contract with McKinstry, and we become the sole point of accountability and manage all other entities under us. And so we could hire an architect if a project is a renovation and requires that. We have on-staff engineers, but as an example, we might hire a civil engineer because we don't have that in-house. And then when we go to buy out construction, we can hire all the subs under us as well. And so really what that does is it puts all the accountability in one entity. It's a direct line of communication for the city. And that allows us to guarantee both the cost of the project as well as those outcomes and those energy savings because of the direct control of the entire process. So from structural to timeline, this is going to show you both a difference in the amount of time to deliver a project, as well as how the process takes a little different shape. And so that design bid build process across the top, that is related to what was on the right of the previous slide, the traditional project delivery. And so really this is a linear type of delivery, right? You're going to go step by step through hiring a design team, doing multiple stages of design, putting together construction documents, bidding, buying out the work, and then building a project and closing it out. What we do is a little bit more of a parallel path. And so really we're going to be assessing your facility and then doing some design and cost estimating in parallel, pulling in the potential project team early so that we can actually have a feedback loop there between the folks coming up with the ideas and the folks actually implementing the ideas. And so instead of this handoff, it's a collaborative environment. And so that also cuts time out of the schedule, right? Time in the development and time in the construction, because everybody's already up to speed. So Chase mentioned an investment grade audit. And so really this is that project development, or more analogous to the design and engineering phase of a traditional project delivery. And so this is a graphic from ASHRAE. And they essentially show the different levels of what an audit is. An audit is a detailed investigation of your buildings and assets that takes into account existing data such as utility data, plans, specs, reports, as well as actual physical site visits. And then from there, we come up with potential project ideas, refine those through engineering and energy analysis, and then put together those preliminary designs, construction cost estimates, and construction plans. And so the part that I want to point out here is that really what we're going to do is investigate all your facilities to essentially a level 2. And what that will give you is a pretty detailed idea of all the potential on the table, what the rough financial picture of those are, and then back that up with some preliminary data. At that point, it's a feedback loop where we want to make sure that what we've identified and the potential project we're putting together makes sense for the city. And so we will focus that scope a little bit to get to that final level 3 audit stage, where we will finish with very detailed measurements, refine the designs, and then get to those guaranteed construction costs and guaranteed energy savings. So this is just a quick snapshot of the scope, broken out by department and then the buildings and assets in each of those departments. You'll see across the top of the table that we've got building audit, lighting audit, and solar assessment. I will point out that in that building audit, we're looking at multiple things. We're looking at gas consuming equipment. We're looking at electrical, lighting, HVAC, as well as water conservation. So that's kind of an all-encompassing piece. Lighting, obviously, looking at the lighting systems, and then solar potential on these 3 departments. Chase, anything to add on this slide?
Yeah, I'll just add that, we chose this grouping as the first phase for a few reasons. One, we kind of did a survey and I interviewed a bunch of department heads or sort of building or asset managers to understand sort of what immediate needs were and some needs for buildings that they weren't able to do, right away in that general fund process. So that was one way we identified those. Another was where we thought there was a lot of low-hanging fruit, frankly. And so a lot of energy savings, and that makes a lot of sense toward our energy and climate goals, and it makes a lot of sense financially in terms of payback as well. And then it's kind of a no-brainer. We also chose it based on excitement. The folks represented here and their departments are early adopters of all of this. And so we wanted to honor that enthusiasm and build on that momentum. And so that very quickly is how we chose this first phase of investment grade audits and eventual work. It's a dynamic process, and again, when strategically or when appropriate, we have some buildings in mind for future phases. And for instance, a building like City Hall, we know needs a lot of work, but it wasn't included in this first phase because we're still exploring and doing due diligence on the federal building. And so again, that's just an example of the decision-making process and the dynamics of this. Once we know more about that building and its future use, it might be a great candidate for a future phase. And so we'll be opportunistic, and that's why we structured the master contract. Just a quick note on solar. You see that a couple aren't marked there, and that's for the reason of we asked McKinstry in this kind of preliminary investigation to look at solar almost not purely, but primarily from a financial and for reasons of that, the Missoula Parking Commission parking structures didn't make the first cut, and neither did the Missoula Art Museum. There are some historical considerations there as well. But, in the next phase or the next thing we'll do upon this contract approval, there's plenty of quantitative work, but there's also qualitative work. And so we'll sit down in earnest with each of these department heads or facility managers and talk through all of this. And if they really want us to investigate solar, then we will and we can. There's a lot of flexibility. So just wanted to add those couple comments.
Thanks. I've got a question from Brian. So assuming it's on what we're talking about right now, why don't you go ahead, Brian?
I was actually going to tell space. No, I'm kidding. Yes. And I think Chase just answered my question. Chase, we invested, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago, it's hard for me to remember, in a solar assessment, I believe with Solar Plexus for some of our city municipal buildings. You just said there that, we do this work with McKinstry in this part will be primarily financial related. And so I think that the work that was done before, which was more sort of the physical aspect of the buildings and the solar potential at buildings, dovetails probably well with this financial modeling. Is that a fair way to characterize it, or am I off base?
Nope, that's a totally fair way to characterize it. And we have that document, and obviously we'll move forward with these solar assessments with that information. And that factored into the estimated cost of these current solar assessments, because we have some basic information from that study already. One thing to note, though, is some of those considerations have changed. Costs have changed, technology has changed, and also things like, for instance, what they call non-export or behind-the-meter solar systems are more readily able to be completed. And, that wasn't the case a couple years ago, even when we did that solar assessment. And so we also have some fresh and new and frankly exciting things to explore in 2020 as opposed to a couple or few years ago. And those are exciting developments. So we're excited to do that as well and add to that information that we already have.
I have a question from Jesse, and then we've got about 10 more minutes to complete this presentation before taking a vote. So Jesse, why don't you go ahead quickly?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Chase, I'm really intrigued by this. I think I have kind of a grasp on how this works. We do similar type contracts in the investment world. So essentially, are we just, we're hiring this company and then we're going to be paying them at the time that savings is discovered? Am I correct in saying that? So they kind of do an audit and then they're going to guarantee essentially that there's going to be savings, and then we pay them out of a chunk of that future savings. Is that correct?
Yeah,
essentially.
Basically, yeah. So the investment grade audit, the part of those findings are guaranteed savings by the company. So we haven't paid them any money yet. And with that comes a list of energy conservation measures or projects in common terms. The team will look at that grouping of projects along with the guaranteed savings, and we've asked them to include greenhouse gas emissions reductions as well, and make a final decision on the grouping of projects we want to do from McKinstry's comprehensive list in the investment grade audit. We will then bring forward an actual energy performance contract, which you will see to do the work. And we'll understand all of the guaranteed savings and all of the costs of that next phase or construction phase. And in theory, we hope and what we often see is that those guaranteed savings will pay back the cost of both that construction and the cost of those investment grade audits in this phase. Does that help explain?
Yeah, so essentially by signing this contract, we're putting the $213,000 cost on the hook essentially, but we're expecting to get more than $213,000 in savings over the course of time. And so if there's not that savings, then McKinstry is going to essentially waive that $213,000. Am I correct in that?
Jesse, this is Tim Tolman with McKinstry. So we will take the initial $213,000 after we're done with the investment grade audit and roll it into a construction contract. I can guarantee you that the $213,000 will easily be guaranteed and saved over the period of time. We're hoping that we have a lighting project, a solar project, some HVAC and controls that go towards all the buildings, all the facilities, and that you're going to see energy savings that will pay for all of that. And so you are correct. You are correct in saying if we don't have that, we waive the $213,000. That's not going to be the case. It's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of, let's just say we're saving you $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year in utilities. So let's say we're saving you $150,000 a year in our guarantee. We don't reach it. We look at it, we say, God, we goofed on our stuff and we're only saving you 140. We write you a $10,000 check every year until we correct that and you're saving the 150. And additionally, I want to bring this up also. Let's say the construction project is $1.5 million or $2 million for everything you want to do. Let's just say the whole thing is that much. And we guarantee it's $1.5 million. If the construction project comes in at $1.6 million, you don't pay for that. We eat $100,000. So we're guaranteeing both the project cost and the energy savings.
Okay, excellent. And I'm certainly supportive of the project. I was just trying to try and figure out kind of the inner workings of it, just so I can understand that. So I appreciate you explaining that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Those are great questions, and obviously we want this to be crystal clear. So, and maybe Madam Chair Jones, we have some other things to cover, but in the interest of time, I think we've covered the bulk of it. And so,
why don't you take another 5 minutes or so to finish up the highlights of what you perceive to be for the presentation, and then we'll try and take a couple questions and get a motion on the floor. But go ahead for a few more minutes, okay?
Reed, would you like to briefly go over this example?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we kind of talked through the less exciting part, right? The overall concepts and kind of the process and steps. We thought it might make sense to have kind of a tangible example. And so the first thing I'm going to point out is the picture, right? So this is a parking garage in the city of Great Falls. And this is a midway through construction picture. You can see the top 3 floors have new LED fixtures. The bottom 2 have the old. And so really we see 3 distinct benefits, right? First is curb appeal. It just looks nicer. The second is safety and security. It's way brighter. There's less shadowing on those upper floors. So going to be much better for constituents and staff. And the third is obviously the energy cost savings and the emissions reductions. So it's kind of a trifecta in this one. Looking down here, so this is just a cash flow analysis, nothing too fancy. The top section shows energy savings and operational savings. Now, they had a high fixture failure rate every year. And so they had a sizable amount of operational savings that were also included in this project. And so that's that nearly $23,000. If we go to the next section down there with the project costs, this was a finance project. And so you can see both a principal and an interest liability there for about $20,000. So the difference between the two in year one, 23,000 savings, 20,000 liability, you've got about $3,000 in positive cash flow on year one. And so as we go across the table in the years, you can see over 15 years, the life of the project, you can accrue a decent amount of extra funding to either put directly into your budget or to deploy for additional projects in these related facilities.
Thanks, Reed. So just a real quick example of work in Montana that McKinstry has done with another municipality. So next steps and schedule really quick. We spoke with the Missoula Parking Commission Board about this yesterday. It went really well. We're obviously here today. We're presenting to the energy and climate team tomorrow. And you know, I know we're here today, so it's a little bit flip-flopped, but we've kept them in the loop as much as we could and as much as they've met over time. And then we hope for final council approval on Monday, if you so see fit and vote that way. And then, you know, we've been in development for almost a year now. And you know, these department heads and facility managers know McKinstry at this point, and we're ready to go. And we'll schedule both those interviews and investment grade audits nearly immediately after the new year, and obviously after city council approval. One bonus to that and doing it now is Reed and Tim tell me that there are some great prices right now. And we think that we can lock in some really great rates by sort of pouncing immediately. And that concludes our presentation. So if there are more questions and discussion, I'm happy to interact.
I'm going to add one thing, if I might, Chase. Not only is the pricing relatively good on things right now, but as you guys all know from being through construction projects, the best time for us to go out to local subcontractors and keep the work local is to bid this out in February and March when they're looking for work for the summer. So the quicker we can get this audit done and get it on the street for those guys who are hungry to have work to get them through the summer, the better we are. And I'm talking, those savings can be relatively significant. So as something to put in your back pocket.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. I do have a fair amount of questions now, so let's try and keep it moving forward. Ms. Merritt, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks. I guess I see on the list of to-do things is the irrigation of our city parks, and I think that probably is a pretty big component. I know that most of our city parks are on their own individual wells, but I suspect that we probably have some irrigation that's happening with the Missoula City Water. And I'm wondering if you can give us a little, like, how do you look at those things, because I think there's probably a cost difference between those two different sources of water. Maybe you could give us a little bit of info about that.
Reed, are you able to comment on that? You've been working with those specific city park staff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for the question. So yeah, you're exactly right. There are some parks that are on existing wells and some that are on city water. And so we've got kind of 3 different approaches that we're taking with the parks. So the ones that are on existing wells, we can actually put a variable speed pump on those wells. And so that reduces the electrical consumption to pump that water through the irrigation system. So that's kind of the tier 1. Tier 2 would be targeting some of the parks that don't have wells and are on city water. And so we will actually be looking at the feasibility of drilling wells for those parks. And then if it does make sense, we'll actually put that well in and then put that variable speed pump in to that new well. And so then the 3rd tier is some parks actually just have irrigation systems in really poor shape overall. And so we're doing just a few isolated comprehensive evaluations where we're looking at piping coming into the park, the distribution piping of the irrigation system, the arrangement of the sprinkler heads, basically everything wholesale, taking a look at it.
And Julie, this is Tim. I think the other thing that's important to do when looking at the parks and the irrigation systems is to make them as intelligent as possible. Because some of the things you're doing now is you're having people go out and looking at things and spending man hours all the time. Now, we're not looking at getting rid of those people. We're looking at having these systems be intelligent so they can do other jobs and do them better. So
I agree, absolutely. That I see some places where certain areas of the parks get overwatered and some get underwatered. And if we can improve just the efficiency and effectiveness of those systems, that would be great. And I just, for my colleagues, I think it's important to understand that actually irrigating the parks with their individual wells is really good, because if we're irrigating with city water, we're irrigating with water that we've paid to treat. That doesn't need to be treated if it's going out on grass. So I'm glad you guys are looking at that.
You bet. And the thing I will add also is, for those of you who don't look at water as really as conservation, it's one of the best conservation things that we look at.
Great topic. Thank you. Ms. Cheryl.
Yeah, I really appreciate this presentation. Chase and I have had conversations kind of at a maybe even higher level before, but I do love this model. I love the guaranteed savings financially and energy wise. I will have to say that if we were the first community doing this, I would be a little nervous, but I am really happy with kind of just that this has been a tried model in other communities. You know, this is not, while I support startups, this is not a startup company, because this is going to be some big investment. So anyway, I'm excited that this is coming forward. My question is a little more about kind of procedurally, how will these come back to council? I mean, will we be approving projects? Can you talk just a little more about what that process will be going forward after we do the audit, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, we'll get the audit findings, and then, you know, we could certainly come and present those findings to council. And I assume we will likely do that for the energy and climate team too. But the internal team will take a look at those audit findings and that list of energy conservation measures or projects, and we'll finalize all of the projects to move forward and all of the numbers behind that, financial, greenhouse gas, energy savings, and otherwise. And then in order to move forward, we'll have to bring another contract as an addendum to this master contract. And so at that point, City Council we'll see that, and we'll need to consider that for approval moving forward. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, so yes, it does. But also, okay. If I may have a follow-up, Gwen.
Yes, please.
Very quickly, because I've got 2 more people and we've got someone who we are supposed to start interviewing right now. for the impact.
Okay, never mind then. This is a technicality we can work out later.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we do have one attendee, Vanessa Seaver. If you can hear me, I want to let you know that we'll be getting to you in about 5 or 10 minutes for your interview, but we're going to wrap up this item first. That's for the Impact Fee Committee. Okay, Heidi, and then Brian.
I'm really excited about this work. I think my question, maybe I'm having trouble loading the attached documents. I don't know if that's just me or if everyone's having trouble seeing those. But my question is about the payback period on individual projects. I imagine that they'll be vastly different depending on what, if we're talking solar or adjusting irrigation. And so is that payback period and then the guarantee associated with each project, are those, I guess the length of that guarantee, is that defined on a project by project basis? I guess.
Heidi, this is Tim with McKinstry. I'll answer that. What usually happens is you take projects that have very good paybacks. Lighting has a great payback. Water has a great payback. And then you usually couple those with things that you want to get done that possibly you couldn't do. Something that is a maintenance problem that they want to get done and do that. When it comes to the guarantee, they're aggregated together and looked at as one project overall, so we'll guarantee it. But should we be close, let's say we're getting close to not meeting a guarantee, believe me, we go in and look at individual projects and see what they are, but it's an aggregated guarantee.
That's great. That makes perfect sense. Thanks for answering that.
You bet.
Thanks. And I know some people were having a hard time loading the attachments and some weren't. I can't explain that. Sorry. Mr. Von Lossberg, and yes, I am looking for a motion.
Yeah, so I'm happy to make the motion. Quickly, a couple things. Great questions from folks. The audit is exactly the process to go through determining some of these things so that we can make data-driven on both an energy front and financial front decisions about the work that we invest in going forward. Energy savings performance contracting is not new, but it is a fantastic tool. The first thing I did as a volunteer before I got on council was helping draft our greenhouse gas and energy conservation plan. This is one of the critical things that we contemplated doing to make those kind of smart investments, so that we are doing, this is precisely the point where there's the nexus between energy conservation, greenhouse gas reduction, and saving money, financial responsible actions where we save money for the public in our operations. This is a smart way to go about doing it. I'm sure there were some couple of points. I'm really excited about this and happy to make the motion.
Thank you. That motion is in order. Mr. Ramos, we had one more comment or question.
Yeah, I'll keep this really quick. It's just a comment. I just want to thank Chase for all of his work in this. Having the privilege of having met Chase and worked with Chase, I can tell you he really does care and really does a great job in trying to balance both the financial aspects and then the environmental benefits as well. So I am certainly an extreme conservationist, but also a steward of the tax dollars. And I really love how this is a practical, pragmatic solution. And I also really like the contract structure. I've often thought that we should do this in other types of contracts where it really gives the contractor skin in the game, especially when it's an initiative or some sort of proposal like that. I also really like the fact that this is going to have actual measurable success in it, that we're actually going to be able to see where our money's been going and how we're going to be saving that, and also have a measurable impact as far as measuring our impacts on the climate. Energy consumption, greenhouse gas emission, everything else like that. I think too often globally governments enter into these contracts where there's not really a measurable solution, and the person that's taking the contract doesn't necessarily have to be held to account to achieve certain standards. But I really like this overall structure. There's skin in the game, and I'm looking forward to it. So thank you again, Chase and McKinstry. I think this is great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion that is on the table. I will call for public comment. I am not seeing anyone's hand raised for public comment on this item. And I also want to say thank you, Chase. Great topic, great questions from everyone today, really fleshed it out. And I really like it when we can have a robust discussion. And I get to use the word robust in terms of a discussion on council. So thank you very much. Okay, we will take a roll call vote. And I needed to reflect also that Ms. Merritt joined the meeting a while ago and is here to vote.
All right. Stacy Anderson,
Yes.
Martha Becerra,
Yes.
John Contos,
Yes.
Jordan Hess,
Yes.
Gwen Jones,
Yes.
Julie Merritt,
Yes.
Jesse Ramos,
Jesse?
Yes. There's a delay here. Yes.
Amber Sherrill,
Yes.
Sandra Vaseca,
Yes.
Brian Von Lossberg,
Yes.
Heidi West.
Yes.
So that's 11 yeses and 1 absent.
Thank you. That will go on the consent agenda, but I'm putting a pin in that one to make some positive comments also Monday night. So thank you for your work, Chase. Thank you, presenters, for coming today and all of your great responses. And let's go forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
for having us.
Okay, we have one last item on our agenda. We need to interview 2 people for the Impact Fee Advisory Committee. We have 1 spot open on the Impact Fee Advisory Committee today. We are interviewing 1 person, Vanessa Sievers, and I believe that next week we are interviewing Peter Kelleher for these for the spots. So we have not been doing these interviews for committees and boards much this year for various reasons, but we're back at it now. It's the season, and for people who are new to council last January, and we didn't have many of these, I always have the practice when we continue interviews from one week to the next, try and take notes on the person interviewing at the time so that you have that in your mind. Heidi, did you have a comment or question?
I was wondering if you could share the question list by email. I can't open this either. I'm sorry.
Okay, you know what? I'm not sure if something is going on with eScribe this morning. I prepped yesterday and was able to open everything, including the questions. There, I think, are only 4 or 5 questions, but I also have a blank screen now on eScribe. Is someone able?
I have, this is Lisa, I'm sorry. I have access that I could go ahead and email it out if you'd like me to.
That would be great because I don't have anything in front of me and I need the script.
Okay.
You can email it out and we'll let Vanessa, make sure that Vanessa is in and allowed to talk. And her hand is up. If you can unmute yourself, Vanessa, do you see how to do that?
Am I unmuted now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Wonderful. Hang on a second while we just pull up.
Gwen, if I may, I might suggest that you promote Vanessa to a panelist so that she can use her video if she wants.
And how would I do that, Mr. Hess? I think
there should be 3 little dots next to her name. Or
wait.
Excuse me, this is Kirsten. I'm helping with Zoom. I just got her promoted to a panelist.
Thank you. Lovely.
I also wanted to mention that I took a look at eScribe, and it may simply be that you need to clear your cookies or refresh your screen because I've been having everything show up, but I had to refresh my screen first.
All right. Okay.
And this is Lisa. I did send those questions, Gwen, to you and to Heidi. If anyone else needs them, let me know.
Okay. I'm not seeing it in my email. So if someone does have those questions, it would be great if they could start down the list. They're pretty simple questions, frankly.
I have them up, Gwen, if you want me to.
Ms. Becerra, please take it away.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
And I'll say good morning, Vanessa. Thank you for your patience. hope you heard me earlier. We've got one spot open, 2 people interviewing. It'll be a couple of weeks before things are finalized. And Ms. Becerra, if you just want to go through all of the questions, that would be great.
Sure thing. Vanessa, welcome. First question is, what is your interest in serving as the City Council's representation of the Impact Fee Advisory Committee?
Well, I'd like to be involved more in Missoula, and I have given back through public service in the past, and I feel that this committee would be a way that I could really give back because I have the financial experience and I have the real estate and development understanding and background as well. So this is a way that I feel like I could really contribute to the development in Missoula. I think it's incredibly important to do this. We need these fees to fund the impact of development in our city, and this for transportation and for public services and other infrastructure. So it's an incredibly important committee, and I think I could really give back.
Great, thank you. Gwen, do you want me to go with number 2?
Yes, yeah, I don't have them in front of me, so thank you.
Sure. Thank you. The next question is, what knowledge, skills, and experience could you bring to the committee?
Okay, so I do have a background in finance. I just recently completed a master's in finance from Harvard Extension, and I graduated top of my class. So I do have the financial education, and I have additional business and financial education background as well. I also have served as county treasurer in the past of Grafton County in New Hampshire. So I do have that financial work experience within a government entity. So I do have that background. Also, as for understanding the need for development impact fees and transportation impact fees, my family's business is development and investment real estate business. And so I do have a lot of experience and knowledge of the need of impact fees and different types of impact fees. Most of this was not done in Montana. Most of our development businesses throughout the West Coast, but it's the same city to city, the needs of new development and the infrastructure to support it and the need to fund that. So I do have an understanding of both the finance, the government background and work experience, and the real estate and development side experience as well.
Great, thanks. Third question is, what do you see as the role of the Impact Fee Advisory Committee, and what would be your approach?
Well, I know that the Impact Fee Advisory Committee is responsible for calculating, assessing, and spending the impact fees for the city, just the given statement. But beyond that, I know that there was a recent report that was approved this year from the advisory committee, and that this should be done every 5 years. So I know that the report was commissioned as 2018, 2019, and that this will have to be done again in a few years. But I think that we'll have to really look at how this 10% increase in impact fees is it really working? Is it covering the deficit in the transportation impact fees? I believe there's a $4 million deficit right now, and seeing the effectiveness of that. And really looking at as well, I know right now it's based on unit size, and the 10% increases were related to the square footage of the unit. And I think that we might want to look at different ways to make it more equitable and fair, and for it to really capture the effect of the development. For example, I'm not sure that a new affordable housing, high density, multi-unit building downtown will have the same impact on infrastructure needs as, say, a suburban large development out on Mullen Road, which will require perhaps a lot more, will have a lot larger impact on roads and transportation needs than the downtown core development. So I don't know if this is something that we may want to consider to make it more equitable for, say, affordable housing, and also to look at, if these fees are actually capturing the real impact of the development going forward. So yes, that's something I would like to focus on.
Thank you. The next question is, the Impact Fee Advisory Committee will meet on an as-needed basis. There will be materials to review and meetings to attend. Do you have time to fulfill the demands of that position?
Yes, I do.
Great. And last question is, the City of Missoula's growth policy is based on focusing inward. In what ways should the Impact Fee Advisory Committee apply the growth policy to its work?
So this is what I was discussing a little bit earlier, with the 2 questions ago, with trying to look at how we can use impact fees to help direct growth, and also to have them accurately measure the cost of new development and the cost on infrastructure. So yes, if we have this inward growth policy in Missoula, and we need more affordable housing, and the Impact Fee Committee can use impact fees, or look at ways to use impact fees to meet these needs. And one of the ways to do this is, as I was talking about before, looking at that, high density development in the urban core of the city, and maybe reducing impact fees for those buildings, which would be more equitable for affordable housing, and would also match our inward growth policy. And then charging a higher impact fee because it is a bigger strain on resources and would have a higher cost on infrastructure for developments that are sprawling outward, say, west of Reserve. So we can use impact fees to, I guess, target growth towards the inner core of the city. And so I would like to look at using the impact fees a little bit more to meet our goals, rather than having them just, based on, say, square footage of the unit, number of units. So.
Okay, that's all the questions, Ms. Jones. I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you for pinch hitting there. I appreciate it. Ms. Merritt, did you have something?
I have a question, and I know that it's always touchy of making sure we ask all of the interviewees the same set of questions, but this is in regards to Ms. Seaver's application, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. You note on your application that under current employment, that your part of your current employment is working with the family's commercial real estate business. Would you mind giving us the name of that business?
So there's no specific name, and it's not a full-time position. This is just ongoing for many years. It's more of a consultant role. So let's see, our properties are Pickering Square. These are mostly around Seattle, Issaquah, Mercer Island, and then by Bend, Oregon, and Portland. Let's see, it's mostly commercial real estate. In the past, it was some residential. So they're all under different names. So Globe Building Holdings LLC, Pickering Square LLC, or Pickering Place LLC under Pickering Square. So that's by Costco's headquarters. That's a, shopping center. Then we have office buildings and other triple net properties right now. We were just looking into redeveloping the shopping center into a multi-use property and more apartments, but coronavirus kind of set that back. So we aren't currently working on a development right now. We just have the commercial property. So it's more investment focused right now than development, but in the past was more development focused. And hopefully in the future we will, focus more on development going forward. But I know a lot of people in construction development have been struggling with coronavirus, and all of their businesses as well. So our plans are set back a little bit. But yeah, the focuses of, say, in Seattle is a lot of the similar focus as Missoula, with they want, you know, higher density inside the core, growth inward instead of an outward sprawl. And they're working on transportation systems. And so, yes, it was a lot of, you know, working with the city to try to work on what they were looking for and the density we could use in our shopping center, and we're looking to redevelop that. So yes, but it's more on a consulting basis. That's not a full-time position right now. I just finished working on Rafe Graybill's campaign. So I am now applying for more jobs around Missoula, and I'm currently in the middle of doing that. But
okay, thanks. I just wanted to understand if your involvement was with local commercial real estate and development, and thanks for answering that.
Great, thank you. So Ms. Sievers, like I said, we have one additional person to interview next week. There is one spot open, and it'll take another week or so before everything is finalized. But we really appreciate your application and your interest in service, and welcome to Missoula. And I think everyone will be glad to move forward from this pandemic. And I'm looking to 2021. It's going to happen. I know it. Thank you so much for your time today. And that is the end of our agenda.
Wait, one moment, please. Sorry
to
interrupt. I didn't get my hand raised in time.
Ms. Anderson.
Okay, so this is actually is not a question for Ms. Sievers. So if she'd like to meet, it's actually just a quick announcement for all y'all. Don't know why all of a sudden went Southern on that. Is that so? There has been a little bit of a change in the Public Safety and Health Committee schedule for this morning. I will save you the details, but basically we are scheduled to start Public Safety and Health at 11:15. However, the first agenda item that we were going to take up was pulled by Mr. Von Lossberg, and we will deal with that after the coming year. So the only two items on the agenda are interviews for the Animal Control Board. Those interviews times had already been set. So we actually are not going to start committee until 11:40. We have our first interview at 11:45 and the second interview at 2:05. I will come on at 11:15 and announce for anyone who is tuning in what is going on. But basically you all have a little bit of a coffee break this morning. If you will please join Public Safety and Health at 11:40. No need to come in any earlier than that for the Animal Control Board interviews. I would appreciate it.
Wonderful, thank you. We actually get a break today. Lovely. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We will see you at 11:40, and Administration and Finance is adjourned.